Okay, thank you. We will call this meeting to order. This is the regular City Council meeting, Encinitas City Council meeting. It is 6:01 on Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Mosca?
Here.
Councilmember Kranz?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Hinsey?
Here.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Here.
The record will show that all members of the City Council are present.
Okay, thank you. So now I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have a flag that we could put onto the screen? Or if we don't, maybe we could try to get one for future meetings. I don't see one, but we will. Okay, begin. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so now we are on to our special presentation and proclamation. So the first one is a virtual presentation of certificates of appreciation to volunteers that distributed facial coverings at the beach. And I just want to say a special thank you to our council member, our Deputy Mayor, Kelly Shea Hinsey, who organized this. At the beginning, she was inspired and said, that's right. She said, how can we be part of the solution? You know, what can we all do here? And so she spent something like 12 weekends in a row doing this with volunteers, handing out masks, and she's going to talk a little bit more about it. I did it with her, as did many others. And I'm just really grateful that you had that idea and that you spearheaded it and organized it, got the masks, got the donation for the money to buy the masks, all parts of it that have to happen to make something like that successful. So thank you to our Deputy Mayor, and I'll let you take it from here.
Well, thank you for saying that. It wasn't all me. It was a big community effort. And it started, I'll just say a few words about the origin story of the mask distribution, which started on the eve before the 4th of July. And the mayor was out of town. And so I was helping Jennifer make some decisions about what we were going to do with a day that promised really big swell, bigger than usual. And it was, if not a heat wave, it was just going to be a really hot day. So we knew that we were going to have a lot of visitors, and we knew that the lifeguards were going to need help because they had been having so many contacts of passing out masks. But on this particular 4th of July, due to the conditions in the water, they were going to need some help. And so Jennifer and I were speaking on the phone. I think it was like 8 at night on the Friday before the 4th. And she said, well, you know, we've got all these masks. The lifeguards have them. They might just not be able to have the bandwidth to pass them out. So she and I said, let's do it ourselves. And so Jennifer and I were the first ones on that 4th of July. Jennifer took Moonlight Beach and some friends and I took Beacons Beach. And I think by the end of that day, we had not only passed out hundreds of masks to people who showed up without them, but that we also had so many folks say to us, how do I get involved? I want to take part in the next time you do this. So we said, all right, let's do it tomorrow. So we did it on the 5th of July. And from there, it kind of just took on a life of its own, where we had volunteers that wanted to staff Stone Steps. So we were able to add Stone Steps as another location. And then we had one volunteer who said, I think a way we can make this even cooler is if we get an artist to design an Encinitas specific mask. And he said, I'm going to fundraise for that. So he got all of his neighbors together. And I think we had about 30 volunteers at that point who were regular volunteers, and they all chipped in, and we were able to create a custom Encinitas branded mask. And we produced that with Chateau & Sons. So local printers took on the printing job, and we thought it would last us a couple of weeks. And in fact, we were out within 2 hours because word spread that there were these awesome Encinitas masks. And I think we had people coming to get them instead of just, you know, beachgoers taking a free mask. So, from then on, the volunteers really owned it themselves. And when I look back on a lot of accomplishments because people were really willing to raise their hand and say, I want to be part of a solution instead of complaining, because we really could have complained in that circumstance. We have a lot of people coming to our beaches, but we also have a beautiful resource that when it's 115 degrees in Menifee, we want people to come to Encinitas to be able to cool off and to enjoy our beautiful beach and just respite from the heat. So when I look back, Captain Larry Giles gave us some helpful data before we started this meeting. We had 60 volunteers who devoted nearly 200 hours of community service to our city. between the 4th of July and Labor Day, and we together distributed 21,300 masks. So I'm going to go ahead and read the names of all the volunteers who helped out, because I know that some of them are watching at home tonight, and we have certificates to offer you too, but I don't have any here with me. So the names of the people who helped are Caitlin McMillan, Tashi McMillan, Karis Rhodes, Cheyenne Arnold, Nick Satterpour, Naime Woodward, Charlene Seidel, Chris Powell, Felicia Tobias, Dawn Griffith, Cindy Bryant, Promise Yee, Patty Meeker, Mona Angel, Tony Krantz, Susan Sherrod, Delby Sherrod, Zach Benavidez, Michaela McFadden, Brian McFadden, Jan Rogers, Robert Rogers, Jessica Pressman, Brad Lupin, Brad Hansen, Jen Richter, Hans Richter, Mary Lavery, John Giada, Rod Greek, Jusay Bendelaire, Elise Siegel, Rob Fitzgerald, Kaylee Fitzgerald, Carmen Stevens, Katie Benson, Spencer Murray, Debbie McCarver, Anika Walden, Zach Areola, Catherine Blakespear, Jeremy Blakespear, Ava Blakespear, and Oliver Blakespear, Kiffin Menendez Roland, Christina Peters, June Hansberger, Molly Woods Drake, Jen Meacham, Wynn Roy, Jeremy Sison, Marty Benson, Christina Menno, Brenda Turshfield, Ali Cote, and Coleman Verbeth. So I thank those volunteers. I thank my fellow council members who showed up to help us out. And I think we accomplished a great thing. And I'm glad we were successful in preventing community spread at our beach access points. And we kept the beaches open all summer long. So we all helped out with that effort. And thanks to Jennifer for being up for it. And Captain Larry Giles for facilitating the tent setup every weekend. That took a lot of effort from our lifeguards too. So a lot of people contributed, and I'm grateful for the willingness.
Well, thank you. That was nice. Okay, the next thing is the proclamation that we have. So I don't think we've read a full proclamation since we've had, or maybe one or two since we've been remote. So there's nobody to come up and stand with me, so I will just read the proclamation. This is the 3rd annual California Clean Air Day, and it will be held on October 7, 2020. And here are the whereases. So whereas air pollution contributes to higher rates of cancer and heart and lung disease, which adversely affects public health. Whereas clean air is essential to the health and well-being of our residents, visitors, and workforce. Whereas the City of Encinitas has demonstrated its commitment to the health of our community through its climate action plan and its many active transportation projects. Whereas the city's participation in Clean Air Day will help reduce greenhouse gas emissions and decrease the rate of global warming. Whereas emissions from vehicles, industry, and even household sources significantly affect the natural environment, air quality, and well-being of residents, employees, and visitors of the City of Encinitas. Whereas individual actions such as not idling vehicles, choosing to walk or bike to work and school, carpooling, and conserving energy can directly improve air quality in our region. Whereas education about air quality can raise community awareness, encourage our community to develop better habits, and improve our community health. And whereas Californians from across the state will be joining together to clear the air on October 7, 2020. Be it resolved that the City of Encinitas hereby proclaims October 7, 2020 to be declared Clean Air Day in the City of Encinitas, and encourage all residents, businesses, employees, and community members to participate in Clean Air Day and to help clear the air for all Californians. So this was passed and adopted on the 23rd day of September 2020. So thank you for that. And now the next item is our Coastal Rail Trail. So Santa Fe Drive to E Street segment update presented by Sandag.
Well, good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. Linda Culp with Sandag, and happy to be with you tonight to give you a quick update on our next phase of Coastal Rail Trail. And this phase would start at Santa Fe Drive and continue north to F Street in the city. Sandag and the city and NCTD recently kicked off the final design phase for that segment. It's 0.4 of a mile. It's also planned as a separated multi-use path, and it would be located between the railroad tracks and Vulcan Avenue, and similar to the segment that opened in Cardiff May of last year. We started design approvals. We expect both of those to take us 10 to 12 months. We hope we can beat that, but that's sort of our rough schedule at this point. And given this timing, we would plan for construction to start in the spring of 2022. We plan to have 30% plans to the city and NCTD in the next week or so to begin their review. We do anticipate public outreach. We're discussing right now what exactly that does entail these days, but we're happy to take any comments or questions that you have at this point. So,
well, thank you. Thank you, Linda. So do you foresee this, the rail trail basically being the same design and material and feel as the rail trail that's already existing in Cardiff? It would just continue to the north?
Yes, I mean, we would be looking at right now a 16-foot wide paths would be a little bit wider than the Cardiff Trail, but materials similar, all of what you said, very similar.
Okay, and then does that require retaining walls when it's bigger like that, or will it be able to fit in that area?
Well, there is some relief from Vulcan. If you look at Vulcan and then you look down at the rail corridor in some spots, so we'll leave that to the engineers, but it could be possible there'd be some walls involved. Okay,
so I know that can substantially add to the cost. And do you have a sense of how much it will cost, this 0.4 miles?
We don't have a recent estimate because we haven't been working on this area, but we should have that pretty shortly.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Mosca has his hand up, so go ahead, Councilmember.
Hi, Linda. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for the update. It's much appreciated. And so, just kind of thinking about the last segment, and I'm not sure if this is a question for city staff or you, but we accomplished the quiet zone at Chesterfield around the same time, and so I'm thinking, are we going to be able to produce a quiet zone for F Street and D Street as well? At the same time that we're coming up with a coastal rail trail?
Probably not a question for me. We will, it looks like we will stop and take advantage of that crossing the city installed at F, so we wouldn't be quite up to D or E Street at this time, but I'll defer to the city.
Did we do the last quiet zone in concert with the CRT?
Well, we did. I mean, but I think part of it is that what she's saying is that this ends like right about where the NCTD parking lot starts, right? So it's like quite a ways from the downtown area where it wouldn't be under construction. I think the point of the other coastal rail trail was that whole intersection was being rebuilt. So adding a quiet zone onto it was cost effective.
Yeah, and in fact, Sandag was prepared to plumb for the quad gates that were necessary for a quiet zone, and the city had to pay for the installation of those gates, the purchase and installation. So the city stepped forward in order to do the quiet zone. And we dealt with the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, and CPUC in order to get that through. So that was all city and not related to Sandag so much, other than the plumbing that they were already planning to do.
Yeah, so all I would say, I guess, then, Linda, is that it is a goal of ours to do a quiet zone from one end to the other, and we've accomplished, a portion of it. So, whatever we have to do in terms of working in concert with Sandag planning and making sure that we're, trying to, include it as part of the planning and trying to get whatever funding we can to accomplish these quiet zones. I think it will, only make the CRT safer and more used by residents and visitors alike. One other comment: I walk on the CRT all the time, and I love the CRT. As you know, it's really successful. When we're moving further up north, I think we should take into consideration those things that we've learned from the development of the CRT so far. I think the material that we've used in the past, while it's really the wood. You're starting to see it already kind of start to age and perhaps not stand up too long. And that means that it's higher maintenance for the city to have to maintain that kind of really nice look of it. So I do think that in the future, when we're kind of moving further up, that we should think about the materials that we're going to use so that it's not degrading really fast and causing a maintenance issue for the city. What can stand up a bit better, but also be aesthetically pleasing and look similar to how it feels now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just say one other thing, that Linda recently won, Sandag won and Linda won a Women in Transportation Award. And I'd like you to just say a few words about that, Linda. It was a really important thing for our Coastal Rail Trail, and we were chosen among a really competitive group, and it had to do with the large number of women who helped put together this project. And so can you say a little bit about that, Linda?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this was this year's Women's Transportation Seminar Active Transportation Project of the Year. And one of the criteria is that you highlight the female members of the team. And we had several members, not just from the planning side, but also the design. And then one of our construction managers were female. So we had a nice diverse team. And I think that was one of the reasons why it was highlighted at the WTS banquet.
Yeah, it's impressive. That's the second award for the Coastal Rail Trail that we've won recently. What was the other award?
There have been a couple. Just recently, there was a American Public Works Association Project of the Year. And I believe there was another engineering professional organization a couple of months ago. So lots of accolades.
Yeah, I know.
So happy about that. Yeah.
Yes, you deserve a lot of credit for that, and for helping us actualize this project in our city after a very difficult process. So we are really grateful for that, and I'm excited to see it continuing north. I mean, we have a lot of calls for improvements through Leucadia, so we are hoping we can continue to move it farther north. Do you have any? I know there was an ongoing study, or that was about a year long. So where are we in that process for the northern part of Leucadia when it comes to the rail trail?
Yeah, we completed the planning study for the remaining segments. So through the downtown area and then Leucadia area up to La Costa, that was finished. That report should be available on our website. And we're just going to put that on the shelf for now. There's some different things in play with drainage and the streetscape and the second railroad track and all that. So we're going to turn our attention right now to this 4/10 of a segment, get us up to City Hall, to the downtown area, to the transit center and rail station. And then we'll just kind of let those other projects sort of work out some of the details, and then we'll revisit it at some point.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, do we have oral communications?
Yes, Mayor, we have approximately 8. The first person is Katie Kramer. Katie, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. You can start when ready.
Okay, am I able to share my screen? I had a presentation prepared.
IT can answer that.
No, at this time we do not allow oral communications to share presentations.
Oh, okay. If I can maybe share this after the meeting, it might be helpful just to see some visuals. Okay, great. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for your attention. My name's Katie Kramer. I am talking to you today about presenting an idea for a pilot project to create a parallel parking lane on Cornish Drive. I'm representing a coalition of neighbors, about 10 households that live on Cornish Drive, just north of Santa Fe. So we live across the street from an SRF field, and then there's a portion of the land that's between the street on Cornish Drive and the field that is owned by the city, but not maintained by the city. And so it's a really beautiful place. We're so lucky to live here, but unfortunately, over the past decade or so, this area has transitioned from a place where it was just people parking and watching the sunset and kind of enjoying this beautiful space to becoming a real gathering spot and a party spot, just due to, Encinitas growing, the rail trail eliminating a lot of the sunset parking places. So it's just really become kind of a lawless place that is kind of just creating a lot of different issues for residents and even non-residents. So we wanted to, rather than just complain in the spirit of not complaining and offering solutions, this coalition of neighbors wanted to present an idea for a pilot project to create a lane of parallel parking on this field to sort of limit crowds gathering, especially during the pandemic, and kind of just excessive noise and partying for hours on end. I can just go through, maybe list a couple of the public safety issues that we've witnessed over, the years. Our coalition represents neighbors that have lived here for over 40 years, and everybody's kind of agreeing that this is just reaching a tipping point over this past year or so. So we have large crowds, during the height of the pandemic, up to hundreds of people just parking, gathering, partying. There's a pedestrian safety issue. We all have young children on our street, and we're not really able to really navigate our street during sunset time and evening time because there are a lot of cars coming in and out, and there's just, lack of sidewalk on our street, so it makes it kind of dangerous. We've seen driving under the influence, a lot of drug and alcohol use by minors. We have a littering problem, and you've all probably witnessed that on the south end of Cornish, where that field is. There's just a lot of trash piling up, and so the neighbors are left to clean that up. We have a lot of noise. We have a lot of dust from unmaintained dirt parking, cars pulling in and out. We get that beautiful onshore breeze straight into our homes, but that means we get the dust and the cigarette smoke and the cannabis smoke, and people bringing barbecues and their barbecue smoke blowing into our homes. We have frequent overnight camping. We have public urination. It goes on and on. So our proposed solution is to have a lane of parallel parking, and I can submit this presentation to you that has a rendering of parking. It would allow 31 parking places. And we just respectfully request that the city consider a plan to use temporary barriers to pilot this project over a period of 3 to 6 months. We could use wood planters, rubber curbs.
Thank you, Katie. You can feel free to send in the presentation, and they can send it to the council. So thank you for your comment.
Very much.
And can I ask the city manager, it sounds like she's describing a lot of illegal activities that have become a nuisance. Are we enforcing either with law enforcement or code enforcement?
Sheriff's Department does go there quite often. One of the things we will be doing, and that'll be going up in the next week or two, and it was something discussed, and I know that it's been discussed with the neighbors. Part of the area is there's no parking after 10. However, that has led to, excessive use and partying. As you said, it's a great sunset watching spot. So what we're going to be doing is the city will be putting up signs. If you look at Cornish, both north and south of Santa Fe, parking will only be allowed up till sunset. Once the sun sets, parking will not be allowed. So we were really hoping that will eliminate the late night partying. So people should not be there at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And of course, depending on the time of year and the sunset. But yes, the Sheriff's Department has done regular patrols, but we're hoping that this measure that we can implement rather quickly will help alleviate some of these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to jump in just to apologize to Katie, because Katie, I told you could share a presentation with us, and that was my mistake. So we'll look forward to seeing your presentation when you send it to us.
No problem. Thanks so much.
Next speaker is Diana Nunes. Diana, is Diana no longer there? I don't see her. Do you see her?
I see her. She's right there.
Yeah, she's been added as a panelist due to her.
Oh, okay. So Diana, can you hear us? You can start when you're ready. Diana? I don't. Okay, I guess we'll move to the next speaker, Carol Heil.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Carol, you can start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Blakespear and council members. My name is Carol Heil, and I'm a part of Now Leucadia. My role in this group is as an area leader for the neighborhood I live in, Coral Cove, just off of Vulcan between Leucadia and La Costa Avenue. I represent approximately 50 households. The households that have signed on for me to represent them did so because they wanted changes to our neck of the woods in Leucadia. And most importantly, they signed on because they knew we were advocating for a rail crossing. Most of them signed a petition we gathered in the beginning of this year asking the council to get a rail crossing here in Leucadia. Their signatures were amongst the 1,000 plus signatures that we submitted to the council before shelter in place was mandated. Now Leucadia stopped their efforts to get additional signatures because of COVID-19. We could have collected far more signatures. The community desperately wants and needs a rail crossing. The need for a rail crossing is obvious, but let me point out some of the most imperative issues. Number one, the tracks will be fenced. We don't want to be another Cardiff where they cut the cables to cross the tracks. That doesn't solve anything. Vulcan Avenue between Leucadia and La Costa stretches over 1.3 miles. How else would the residents living in the middle of this stretch access the beach or the businesses on 101? If you believe that a newer bridge at La Costa will suffice, I can guarantee that most of us would not agree. There still would be residents that need to walk over half a mile to get to Leucadia Boulevard or La Costa Avenue, which brings me to my next point. Vulcan is probably the most unsafe 1.3 mile stretch of all of San Elijo and Vulcan, mainly for pedestrians. There just isn't any safe way for pedestrians to walk along Vulcan. Now Leucadia has provided video showing strollers, bicyclists, and pedestrians navigating an already narrow and dangerous road. A safe Vulcan will be imperative when all of the new housing development in our area is constructed. So let's talk about that. There are 5 new developments along the La Costa corridor that are either in construction, being developed, or in planning. Where else in all of Encinitas will you have over 300 plus residential or hotel units built in a small, densely populated area? Now Leucadia has posted the amount of car trips per day that will ensue, these are Sandag estimates, on a daily basis on their website. Now you have more vehicles, more pedestrians, more cyclists traveling on La Costa and all the alternative routes around La Costa, one of the major ones being Vulcan. Why wouldn't you funnel pedestrians and cyclists through a rail crossing in the middle of Vulcan to access 101? It would relieve foot and bike traffic from Vulcan, La Costa, and Leucadia Boulevard.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Diana, are you there? Oh, she was there. It looks like she's gone again. Diana, can you hear me? Okay, I think Diana's having some problems. Marianne Penton, Marianne?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. You can start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you for your time, everybody. My name is Marianne Penton from Leucadia, 32 years. I also represent a neighborhood of 70 homes in Northwest Leucadia. I'd like to comment on last week's City Council meeting. Thank you for pointing out all the good things that have been invested in North Leucadia over the last 5 years. I'm really excited about the bridge going over at La Costa, the pedestrian bridge. That'll be really helpful for all the people coming from La Costa all the way through to have a safe access. But there's a couple of issues that kind of bother me that are related to holistic planning ahead as well as planning for today. And planning not in piecemeal, but in comprehensive planning so that we don't have to spend as much money for studies and so that we can all go forward confident that the city is planning appropriately for the future. A couple of examples are the famous sidewalk bordering Vulcan at Hillcrest since late July. It took about 9 months for the remodel of the apartment building, but why is the sidewalk still not paved, and why wasn't it done concurrently with the construction of the remodel? There's now a utility box on the ground that is broken. People can step on it and get injured. There's a difference in altitude between the sidewalk bordering the property and the dirt, which they're both liabilities to the city. And it's going to be closed for approval in 3 months per the last meeting. So I don't understand why it's taking so long. The other example is the signal at Vulcan and La Costa. When Tony Krantz was talking to the gentleman who was working with the woman who gave the presentation, Ms. Doherty, the gentleman was surprised that there was no sidewalk plans for the north side of Leucadia Boulevard where the old Surface Point location is. And I'm surprised that he wasn't surprised. When you're putting in a traffic signal, when you're planning a traffic signal, isn't part of that plan to create safety to and from that signal? These are points that I'm trying to say that we just need to look at projects holistically, whole, and for the today and for the future. Because we have so much going on, we're in the tip of a perfect storm with all the developments discussed by the last speaker. We have to plan not for today, not a piecemeal, but we have to plan. We have to invest the money to plan for the whole package, because otherwise it's going to be so unsafe. It's going to be so piecemeal and so ugly, so unlike beautiful La Costa and so unlike beautiful Cardiff. So I ask that you guys really consider and think outside the box, to consider all the aspects of a project rather than just an individual project by itself. That's my request. Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And maybe the city manager could weigh in on why the developer didn't include that sidewalk as part of the project.
Yes. Hello, Mayor. With that project, it was not a new development. It was a remodel, so it didn't add any square footage to that. And within our current codes, we could not require the apartment complex to do that. So it might be something down the road in our development codes. But as you know, the city will be finishing that sidewalk. That's a project that is on the list and will be done.
So if that's the knowledge, why does it take so long for the city to create the sidewalk, knowing that the developer isn't going to do that?
Okay. Yeah. Do you want to say one more thing? Public comment's not a back and forth because this isn't an agendized item, but if the city manager wanted to say one more thing about the amount of time, you could, Jennifer.
Sure. It was not part of our CIP project, and with all city projects, we need to make sure that we get the proper contractor on board, the proper contracts in place, and make sure that it's inspected and safely. So we're moving as quickly as we can to make sure that it's done according to all of our codes, purchasing and inspection.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Marianne. So we'll move on to the next speaker
Diana?
now.
Diana, can you?
Yes,
see you. Oh, there you go.
Oh, great.
Right when ready.
All right, thank you. Dear Mayor Blakespear and Council, thank you for your continued efforts to make our city safe and livable for all. I especially commend the efforts of Mayor Blakespear for encouraging city engagement and to her efforts to further ensure that our community is informed. Lillian Dougherty, the Director of Developmental Services presentation last week, provided an important update of projects that have been or are being completed in Northern Leucadia. Thank you, Lillian. In order to keep on track with one of the greatest needs in Northern Leucadia, a safe rail crossing, I would like to bring to your attention that the next budgeting CIP meeting is approximately 6 months from now. As brought forth in the council meeting on June 24th, Mayor Blakespear indicated that at this point, a rail crossing in Northwest Leucadia was highly conceptual. She expressed that she wanted the city manager to work with the staff and come to the council with a project approach to a crossing in Northwest Leucadia. The project approach included a number of steps: community meetings to determine the crossing location and a determination of grants for use in either the design and or build out of this project. In her leadership, she took the initiative to ask that staff put together a plan with an approach to designing and a timeline to evaluate proposed rail crossing locations as suggested by the Cross Connect study. At this time, the mayor asked that the deliverable, an actual report, be submitted in writing from the staff so it could be a consent item. I understand in these unprecedented times, the demands on the city are heavy and monies are restricted, but I also understand that time is of essence. The concern is that if these requested studies or reports are not currently under works, there may be little hope to have a plan with budgeted costs ready in time for the next CIP meeting in the first quarter of next year. Budgetary allotment for the funding of a feasibility study and or the design of a rail crossing would be the concrete initiation of this project, where it moves from talk at tier 2 to walk in tier 1. We are aware that the development of such an infrastructure takes years and yes, potentially decades. So there is no further time to wait. We cannot afford to lose a year in regards to the potential development of a rail crossing in Northwest Leucadia. There are 4 additional major development projects in this corridor with the potential build out in the next 2 to 5 years. These developments will add to the already existing restrictive and unsafe mobility conditions in our neighborhood. Please prioritize accordingly and make the rail corridor a better neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Diana.
you. Next speaker is Kelly McCormick.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. With the election only a few weeks away, it's important that voters understand what's at stake with Measure H, the ballot initiative written by and promoted by the marijuana industry. As city leaders, I hope you will help to educate voters about the lack of control that comes with ballot initiatives. Some people vote without having all of the information, especially when that information comes from a signature gatherer who is paid for each name they're able to collect. Measure H would allow the pot industry to rake in millions of dollars with 4 marijuana retail stores and unlimited cultivation and manufacturing while providing 0 tax revenue to the city. Measure H also removes all city control over where the businesses can locate and how big they can be. It allows marijuana businesses to bypass the permitting, licensing, and vetting that other businesses must go through before they're allowed to operate. It ensures a lack of transparency and makes it impossible to change anything without another expensive election. Regardless of how anyone feels about personal marijuana use, this ballot initiative is nothing but a power grab by the pot industry. It will not benefit the city. In fact, it will cost a great deal of money and place a greater burden on city staff, code enforcement, and the sheriff's department. Measure H is harmful for Encinitas. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, I do not see Mike Brown. I do not see Jamie Simon. So our next speaker is Julie Graboy. Julie, you can start when ready.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Start when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Council, this is Julie Graboy. As Encinitas residents want to know why other councils over the past 30 years have been able to conduct business during the set schedule of general meetings, and yet this council has had a significantly higher number of canceled general meetings and has replaced them instead with special meetings. Between January 1st, 2020 and September 15th, there have been 9 canceled regular meetings and 34 special meetings. One thing that concerns me is that general meetings are different than special meetings. Special meetings deprive citizens the ability to present at oral communications. And because they are often offered at a different time during the day, earlier in the day when people speak or are working, they can't come and listen and participate. And in addition, sometimes the location is different as well. So because of this, it almost assures that fewer people can attend the meetings. There have been some comments that because of the canceled meetings that we have had longer meetings, and it makes a lot of sense. But one council member had said to quote her, that the idea that the mayor would want longer meetings doesn't make sense. And I don't think it's really a case of whether it makes sense or not. It's an ability for citizens to be able to participate. And I find it really quite embarrassing because it's almost like we're asking you to show up for work since your performance is so significantly lower than past councils. So I'm not the only person who has talked about this, but please recognize that the 3 monthly general meeting schedule is really the most basic job requirement that some of us want to see carried out. And please listen to what citizens are telling you and find a way that you can perform these duties, at least as well as the previous councils. Thank you.
And that does, oh, Mike Brown is here now. Mike Brown, can you hear me? Mike, you can start when ready.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can start.
Okay, good. First time I've used this. I'm going to ask something unrelated to the general agendas, but I think it's out there, and that's the Beacons Beach vegetation project, and also I guess you can call it a bluff reclamation or project. I'm wondering if there's an alternative way to get people to go from the Beacons Beach parking lot safely in the future down to the beach in Beacons Beach. I've lived 5 doors from the parking lot for 40 years. I had 2 properties there. I have one now on Neptune Avenue. And I was really disappointed, you know, when we had a real problem a year and a half ago and some of the neighbors spoke out against that. And so even though this is off topic, it's always up as a topic. It's beach access, which is everything when it comes to Leucadia, Encinitas, Grandview. Is there anything brewing that the council knows about as far as safely putting people on the beach from Beacons? Are you there?
Yeah, so public comment is not a back and forth kind of question and answer time. So I encourage you to finish your comments.
Okay, like I say, this is the first time, Catherine, I'm on your email list, so I haven't used your system before, so sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Just wanted to let you know.
Is this the wrong time to bring that up, or how else would I?
I mean, we're just, public comment is where we take comment from the public, but as you can imagine, it would become unwieldy if 5 people were responding to questions. And also it's not agenda, so the public doesn't know that we're actually going to be discussing it. So during public comment, we just hear from you. So if you want to make suggestions or bring up concerns, you know, now's the time to do that.
Okay, well, let me do that then. And I don't know how much time we have left, but I am interested in the previously paid for plans that the city of Encinitas developed to create access stairs and steps, especially for handicapped people to go down to Beacons Beach. They didn't have that element, which I spoke to the city about. And I think that people in wheelchairs or other disabled people or older people need to have a way from Beacons Beach to get to the beach, the Beacons Beach parking lot. It's about an 85-foot elevation change. A lot of outspoken members, I think the minority in the community, spoke out against this, and I'm speaking out in favor of it. I think we need to do that. We need to have an alternative plan to get people from the parking lot to the beach.
Okay, well, thank you. It's nice to hear support for that project. Does the city manager want to weigh in on, or not weigh in, but just update where that project left us? Wasn't it at the end of 2 planning commission meetings a rejection? But I'll just let the city manager say.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It did. That actually went to the Planning Commission and it was denied. And the plan was to reconfigure the parking lot, and it was also to put in stairs. It actually went twice to the Planning Commission through a lot of community outreach meetings. There were several held. I attended those as well. The final design was wood stairs instead of concrete stairs, but unfortunately it did not receive approval at the Planning Commission, and therefore when it is denied, it couldn't be brought back for at least another year. So as you know, we are currently doing our best to take care of the trail, and we've done some improvements in that area. We are still looking at the Beacons Beach restoration project with plantings. We'll be revisiting that as well with another community meeting. But at this time, there are no plans at this time to move forward with the parking lot or the stairs. Those plans are still on file though, and may be revisited in the future.
Can we perhaps talk about how we accommodate handicapped folks? Perhaps even talking about access for at that point or some other point?
Yes, and Madam Mayor and Councilmember Mosca, currently Moonlight Beach is the area to access some of our beaches. As you know, our coastline goes both north and south from Moonlight, and that is our designated area for handicapped, and we have Moby mats specifically for that. But you know, that's taken into consideration, but to let you know that the handicap access point for our beaches is considered Moonlight Beach.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Mike Brown, for your comments. Do we have
and then
more?
I do not, we had one more, Jamie Simon, but I do not see her on the list. So that does conclude oral communications.
Okay, great. So now we have in front of us, we have a report from closed session in front of us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, council, members of the public. The council met in closed session on 2 items. The first was an item that was regarding significant exposure to litigation. The council met with legal counsel on this matter, and there are no reportable actions from that. The second item was the performance evaluation of the city attorney, and there are no reportable actions from that. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. So now we have a consent calendar.
Yes, and Mayor, we do have 2 items that were requested. We have speakers. One was on item 8E, but I do not see Dennis Lees present in the speaker list. And then item 8F.
Okay, so the balance is in front of you, council.
So do you want to remove item 8E, or do you want to keep that on since Mr. Lees is not present?
I'll move the remainder of the calendar, consent calendar, including E.
I'll second it.
Give me 1 second here. Why is it not coming up? Okay. All right, and so we will vote, and let me get that. Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hinsey? Deputy
Yes.
Mayor Hinsey? Okay, thank you. And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Okay, then we move to item 8F, and our speaker is Jessica Carilli.
Hi, is it possible to have a staff report on this, or do I have to say my comment first?
Yes, we can have a staff report.
Yes.
Is staff working on getting a staff report going?
Julie or Ed?
Good afternoon.
Julie, are you ready?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Hi. Good afternoon. This is Julie Ballesteros. I'm an associate with the Development Services Department. Before you today is the approval of a memorandum of understanding with the North County Transit District for a concrete ditch extension that goes from La Costa Avenue to Ashbury Street. It's also approval of plans and specifications, and then award of the construction contract for this project, the North Vulcan Avenue temporary parking and drainage improvements. So this is phase 2. And also we're seeking adoption of a budget resolution for this purpose. The project, we're we're requesting the award of a construction contract to Sierra Pacific West. This contract was advertised, and Sierra Pacific West is considered the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for this project. The award of the contract includes the base bid plus 2 alternates, and alternate 1 is the concrete channel extension, and alternate 2 is additional parking. There additional information that you're looking for?
Also, thank you, Julie. Yeah, we just do a staff report so that the speaker can be oriented and the public can be informed, and then the speaker makes their comments. So thank you for your staff report.
All right, Jessica, you can start your comments when ready. You do have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yep, I'm Jessica Crilly, and I'm a local environmental scientist. This item just caught my attention because it seems like it's a very large amount of money, $500,000 for a project to be stuck on the consent calendar. Seems just a bit inappropriate, especially in these times when the city budget is likely quite challenged with the coronavirus situation and other issues. It also seems like a lot of money to spend for a temporary solution. I'm unclear why this is the temporary parking solution, why we would pay so many hundreds of thousands of dollars for that, and for a ditch. I also am frustrated by, yet again, another project that claims CEQA exemption, but does not provide any evidence to support that exemption. It's unclear to me how the city can claim that this is building a, it's near over 1,000 feet long. It'll be more than 9,000 square feet of new impervious surface for this new drainage ditch. How could that be clearly, without any evidence whatsoever, exempt from CEQA? The purpose of the ditch is clearly to direct stormwater, which will include non-point sources of pollutants, into the ocean, or into Cottonwood Creek or Betacles Lagoon, which are impaired water bodies. And I don't understand how that can be done and how that wouldn't necessarily have any issues with the MS4 permit. Perhaps the city, is doing the correct stormwater regulations and everything that are needed, but it's just not in the staff report, and it seems concerning to me that it's not being explicitly stated how the stormwater regulations are being followed. And finally, all the MS4 parts of the city have to be maintained. So where will the funding come to maintain this new part of that system as well? So those are all my comments. And I would just appreciate if the council would maybe talk about this item before immediately approving it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carilli. Maybe we could ask Ed Wimmer to address the speaker's questions. I see that he's on here, but he's on mute. Can you unmute yourself, Ed, or? Okay, you're unmuted.
There we go. Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I'd be happy to address the questions. We've been working very diligently with North County Transit District and all the agencies that the speaker has been referencing. This has actually been quite a bit of a long process to get to where we are today. On the cost situation, this was a very competitive bid. The spread, if you can tell from the staff report, was very tight. So the speaker should have no concerns about the spending too much money for these improvements. It was a very competitive bid. The city is very diligent in making sure the bids, plans, and specifications were very clear. So the bidders gave very good bids, and the bid was very tight. All the environmental information is available in the MOU, and we can share all that with you offline. I don't want to take the time of the council or the rest of the audience. We can share all that with you. NCTD has all that information available. We went through all that with a fine-tooth comb. I think the speaker is aware. Those improvements are on NCTD right-of-way. So we have gone over all the environmental information with senior counsel at NCTD, and our council, our city council, or excuse me, our city attorney is satisfied with all of that information. Long story short, this has been through. We've been through all the documents. We've been all through the bids. We've been all through the financials. We've been all through the engineering. We're very happy with the results and are pleased to bring this to council. And so when everything has been through such a scrupulous process, we're very confident, and that's why you're seeing it on consent.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I think it's also on consent because it was previously discussed and approved by the council. So this is not, there's not a question about whether this is a project that we wanted to do. Councilmember Krantz has his hand up, so go ahead, Councilmember Krantz.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank Ed and his team, Lillian, for their efforts on getting this moved forward. NCTD also worked very closely, as Ed mentioned, to advance this. It's an important facility for that railroad corridor because currently there is quite a bit of erosive effect where the stormwaters are already rushing down and eating away at both sides of both the track side as well as the bluff side of that stretch of corridor. So it's very important. And I also want to thank my colleagues for the support of the efforts that have been undertaken with regard to the rail corridor. We signed the MOU with North County Transit District a couple of years ago. And what we've done now is we've taken what was essentially a third world corridor where ruts and dirt and trash and a big mess was there. And we advanced a project that cleaned it up from roughly Leucadia Boulevard to Jason Street. And so this phase 2 will complete the project from Jason to Andrew and address significant stormwater issues and should make it so that there isn't Leucadia Lake in that area in future storm events. So again, thanks, and to staff and all the folks that made the efforts to get this to where it is today. And I would like to move approval of this item.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Lillian has her hand up. Would you like to speak, Lillian?
Yes, I did want to just very quickly address a few points. We did look at our design and we were very concerned about water quality. So we looked very closely at this. I just want to add that it was not just one set of attorneys, not just one set of environmental scientists, but two. NCTD closely scrutinized this concern. We've also made changes to our design to ensure that it's a pervious surface so that groundwater is able to infiltrate. And we have made these changes in consideration of the environmental impacts. We've also determined that the water that would go into the ditch is already going in the direction that it's going. So it's not redirecting new water. It's not changing the existing flows. It is addressing an erosion concern that would affect our community in the long term. It is also assuring that stormwater is being appropriately directed. In addition, we are closely monitoring the conditions on the ground, and we are confident that we are having no adverse impact to the environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. Deputy Mayor?
I will just add, all of those were good comments, and I'll just add for Jessica, because she asked, for a long time, the city has been looking to work with NCTD on projects that improve the right-of-way for the quality of life of the residents that surround it. And so it's been years and years. Before I was on council, I used to spend a lot of time in front of council asking for improvements along the rail right-of-way. And this is one that the residents north of Leucadia Boulevard have been asking for a long time. And what Lillian said is correct in that the surface is permeable, but it also is roll friendly. And so a lot of the residents that live up north of Leucadia Boulevard are now able to walk along that corridor. They're able to roll their strollers, and they're able to, bike along it. So while it is temporary, it represents, I think, a new moment in our city's history in which we're able to really collaborate more closely with NCTD than we ever have before. And I attribute that to Councilmember Krantz and his service as chair on NCTD, that we're really building a relationship in which we can collaborate together instead of, having no trespassing signs in which we can't access this corridor at all. So good questions from Jessica, and there's a long history here, and I understand it appears on consent tonight, but there's been a lot of effort and community input that's brought us here tonight.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hinsey?
Yes.
Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So we do not have any other items. So if anybody wants to do a quick council member report, you're welcome to. And if not, we'll go to the city attorney, city manager, city clerk.
I did attend the board meeting of North County Transit District, and we had a presentation of issues related to the 5 big moves from Sandag. And we have transmitted a list of questions to Sandag that we've asked them to answer so that we have a better understanding of exactly how the 5 big moves will impact the planning and investments that North County Transit District has made. We also bought a couple more locomotives. So we will now have 7 new locomotives, and they again are Tier 4, so they're much fewer emissions as well as quieter. So coaster trains will be much more neighborhood friendly. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to the pandemic fears subsiding, and hopefully we'll get some ridership back and get these trains rolling. But they're on order so that by the time everybody's back to riding the train, we will have new equipment for people to get on board. So thank you.
Councilmember Krantz, I heard that I listened to that meeting upon your direction, and I heard that there's fare-free rides to the polls. Is that accurate?
That's true. There will be on election day fare-free, and look for an announcement between MTS and NCTD to encourage that. Will let everybody know that that's available.
Tony, I saw that MTS is getting more electric buses. Are we up in North County looking at acquiring more electric buses?
We have 5 new electric buses on order. We are piloting. I think that one of the most important aspects of any conversation about zero emission vehicles is having the infrastructure that's necessary to power them. So we are working with SDG&E in order to put in the infrastructure, but we can't get too far ahead of ourselves with the number of vehicles that we have until we have our infrastructure in place. We're also going to pilot some hydrogen-fueled buses, which are essentially a hybrid of battery and hydrogen. So our routes are much longer in NCTD's district than they are in MTS. So the logistics between MTS and NCTD are different. They are ahead of us, and we're trying to catch up. There are milestone dates that we're going to have a zero emission fleet. So we're working towards that.
I'm curious to see how Sandag responds to your letter. It'll be interesting to really get some of the details. I think that's part of the problem, right, is that you haven't really had the details. So you're not really sure what they're proposing that affects the railroad track.
Correct. The rail part is there are just a ton of questions. And so it's been our goal to get some written responses. it's just a little too loosey-goosey at this point. So we're very hopeful that Sandag will collaborate with the NCTD staff to put together a special meeting agenda for October 1st that will allow us to talk a little bit about that. And ultimately what it came down to is the recognition that the policymakers, the elected officials, are going to have some really critical decisions to make fairly soon, because we're fairly far down the track, so to speak, pun intended, towards having to come up with a plan that it needs to be done next year. And so we cannot afford to go too much further without having some pretty important questions answered. And so from where the board of directors at NCTD sits, we're wanting to support, and but we can't unless we have the information that we need.
Yeah, okay, that's good to hear. And also that you're investing in new trains, because that's really a vote of confidence for transit in this county and in this area. And I'm happy to hear that. So it's great that will be coming on board. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so let's hear from our, are there any election updates from our city clerk report?
Nope, there are none today.
Okay, city manager, city attorney report? No.
No, thank you.
Okay, and I'll just, one thing before I call on the deputy mayor. At a wastewater district meeting this morning, the attorney for the wastewater district brought up that there are some changes to the Brown Act related to what you can talk about on social media or what constitutes a meeting, that kind of thing. And so when that type of stuff comes through and is relevant to us as city local officials, I'd like to request that the city attorney provide that information at the end of the meetings like this, because the governor apparently just signed something. So maybe you could let us know at a future meeting about that. Deputy Mayor?
Will do.
Oh, okay, thank you, thank you.
I was just going to add that this Saturday morning is the 36th annual Coastal Cleanup Day. And I think we've all noticed a lot more trash around our city because of the convenience of to-go orders and a lot more single-use plastics that we don't like to see. And so this year's Coastal Cleanup takes place on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. And the theme is that it starts at your front door. And so instead of having a central gathering place like they normally do for each community, it's just people walking out their front door, cleaning up their own neighborhood and picking up the trash. And they ask that you do register, and then you also record what you find. So usually the scientists study the trash that's picked up every year to analyze it, but this year they're not able to. And so there's an app that they're asking you to download so that you can actually go through the trash that you find and upload it as a citizen scientist. So it's a cool approach this year.
Well, thank you for that update. And you're already collecting trash, right?
Yeah. Yes, I've been doing a lot of trash collection already because I'm already out there walking around in neighborhoods. So I just pick up trash on my way too.
That's great. Okay, well, with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.